Now, I wonder from each of you if you believe that Donald Trump had a win of a substantial nature this week when he tied the immigration issue to the tariff issue in threatening substantial tariffs against Colombia. So maybe, Catherine, you can edify us on this. He made a threat. Lots of people complained and said it was extraordinary. It was crazy. What the hell is he doing? And Colombia immediately backed down from its position. Isn't that a win for Trump? What do I have wrong?
That is not how I would characterize what happened here.
How would you characterize it?
So we sent lots of commercial flights with deportees to Colombia without issue prior to Trump taking office. Happened all the time. Nobody noticed under President Biden. It was only when Trump decided to insult our allies by putting people on a military jet, which, by the way, not just Colombia, but other countries did not want in their airspace because it was an insult. It was
Wait, but like, to be clear, Catherine, the military jets are much cheaper than the commercial jets, no?
No, that's the opposite. But yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Yes,
besides the fact that this was a totally inefficient use of resources, it's diplomatically idiotic, and this has been characterized as some sort of win for Trump, but I think we're basically back to the status quo here. We're just going to resume what things were like before Trump became president, which is we are going to have more flights or the same number, whatever. We're going to continue having flights of deportees going into Colombia. Now, allegedly, the Colombian president allowed the military jets to come in. I'm a little dubious about whether they're going to continue sending people on military jets precisely because they are much more expensive. And I think it was really just for the initial photo ops. So I don't understand this narrative that there was some victory here. We're back to where we were. It's like the arsonist is really proud of putting out the fire.
But isn't part of it that Trump wanted a thing to go his way and it went his way? And that's one definition of victory from the Trump folks.
What problem did it solve?
I don't know that it solved a problem. I don't know that it solved a problem.
It solved a problem
but the Trump
he
people
created.
Would say, look, I'm playing the Trump foil, which is not my favorite thing to do. But isn't it possibly true? And Catherine, you talked about the madman theory of foreign policy. Mark, I wonder what you think. They would say it has made it more likely that next time there's an impasse with some other country, whether an ally or an adversary, Trump's strong will and immediate threat that caused the Colombian president to do an about-face will cause the next impasse to go Trump's way as well. That would be the argument. Fair or not?
My point is, Colombia didn't actually cave. I think this was a face-saving measure. We're back to where we were before, essentially. There was no real concession from Colombia.
All right, so then I'm going to blame the media, and in that regard, specifically my guest, Mark Leibovich. If there was no victory, why does it feel like a victory on the airwaves, Mark?
Because the media says it is, and I blame them too. And I'm above it all. I would say this.
Self-hating Mark Leibovich.
That contains multitudes. We could spend some time on that. Catherine is right in what she says, but what I think I would object to, but this is not about solving a problem at all. I mean, we talk about things like face. We talk about quote unquote wins, whatever the media deems a win or Donald Trump deems a win. This is a purely, in the shallowest sense of the word, a symbolic presidency. There is the impression being left that a president of a country has caved to Donald Trump, just like the impression being left by, say, a media company settling with Donald Trump for what is otherwise a frivolous libel suit. I mean, it is him basically using whatever brute force is at his disposal to expose witness. It is a win.
In connection with the conflict with ABC News, Trump got the win, correct?
That is how it's perceived. That is how Trump perceives it. Sort of.
Is that how you perceive it? Is that how you perceive it?
Yeah,
I do.
Largely.
I don't think George won.
Yeah.
Much as I like
mean,
much as I like
ABC is out, whatever it is, $15-16 million. So I would say that that was not a win. That was a loss. They lost that money as well as a little bit of dignity there.
All right. How about on another thing with respect to which there was an about face? Because we're going to be doing a lot of this, looking at what happened and then trying to discuss what really happened. And then also at the same time, discuss the perception of what happened, and all those things matter. Some people might say the perception matters more than the reality. So on the halting of federal funds, there was a memo, there was an executive order, there was a lot of confusion about healthcare funds and healthcare costs being paid. Then there was a rescission of the rescission. Catherine, can you explain what went on, and then we can discuss the perception of what went on?
I'm not
Because
sure
that looks like a
anybody-
loss for me.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that the administration backed down as quickly as it did.
Right.
In
Could you just go
rescinding that
take it
memo.
from the top? What was the thing that they
Sure.
sought to do?
So this memo went out on Monday, I believe, of this week, in which OMB basically said we are stopping all payments for almost everything. And there were carve-outs specifically for Social Security and Medicare. And then there was some vague language about something like in accordance with all applicable laws, but it wasn't clear that any of it was legal. There are circumstances, as I understand it, and Preet, you may know better, under which the president can temporarily pause certain kinds of discretionary spending, but they're really constrained circumstances, and they're laid out in the Budget and Impoundment Act. And, you have to provide some documentation, like how much are you pausing spending and for what reasons? And there are only certain narrow reasons. They didn't do any of that. They basically just said, we're stopping all spending. Then there was a lot of confusion about, well, does that apply to Medicaid, which is not discretionary, but it's also not specifically exempted? And even in Medicaid, obviously, lots of people rely on Medicaid, not only to refill a prescription, but if you have a surgery scheduled the ability to continue with something more critical like that is at risk, right? Because the doctor doesn't know if he's going to get paid. So in any event, when journalists first asked the press secretary, so is Medicaid part of this? She could not answer. Eventually, the White House came back and said, no, Medicaid is not affected. But meanwhile, despite her saying that, Medicaid directors all over the country could not actually access the software, the portal, to get in. And then there were lots of other things that were unambiguously supposed to be affected. All sorts of food assistance. Meals on Wheels became sort of the poster child for all of this. But also the administration didn't understand that Meals on Wheels would be affected by their own order based on the way it was characterized. So anyway, there's tons of chaos in a very short period of time. Nobody knows if they're going to be able to pay their bills. If you're a childcare provider and you rely on some federal funds or even state block grants, unclear if you're going to get paid. And tons of pushback. Well, I should clarify. Pushback from the people who are worried about getting their bills paid, not so much from Republicans in Congress. The House chair of the Appropriations Committee said something to the effect of, it's not so bad because when we pass appropriations bills, they're not law, which is, I'm pretty sure, not the case. But more broadly, obviously, Congress is supposed to be in charge of the power of the purse under the Constitution. So there were legal questions here, other, questions about who it's going to hurt and how much. Then very soon after that, the administration said, never mind, or a judge paused it, by the way. The administration said, never mind, we're rescinding that memo. But it's not really clear what the status is now, because
Well, are people getting their
NSF,
payment? Are the payments happening?
some are not. So, for example, the NSF, the National Science Foundation, has not been paying the salaries of postdocs who are working in research labs around the country. And various other grants and things like that have also been paused. So maybe Meals on Wheels is okay, but lots of other things aren't. And I think we don't have a lot of transparency into what's going on. Mark may be in the same position that I am, where I'm just I have this sort of phone tree going where I'm trying to ask people, wait, so did your project get interrupted or what?
Why is it so confusing and difficult? And by the way, Mark, given the chaos, and people were fond of saying the last time out, the cruelty is the point. I think you've said this, but some have certainly said maybe the chaos is the point. Is there a political cost to be paid for this kind of chaos when it comes to money in people's pockets?
I mean, it could. I think one of the reasons they probably paused it is, maybe Republicans on the Hill weren't speaking up about this, but I'm almost certain that they had some visibility on whatever these Medicare or Medicaid payments, Meals on Wheel program, something affecting a lot of his voters, because clearly it did. I mean, if you look at the profile of people who voted for Trump and what kind of assistance they relied on, clearly a lot of Trump voters were getting hurt. You'd see little trickles of press accounts coming in saying so-and-so voted for Donald Trump, but never in a million years expected, the neighbor to be, deported or something like. I mean, there's a whole genre of stories that we have begun to see and we will continue to see here. But I also think if you take a again very shallow, this is my role here. So Catherine does the substance, I do the shallow style read of this, which is fine. I'm totally comfortable in this role. But no, I mean his most supporters out there of Donald Trump, the Republican base, would say, "Oh, look, he's shaking things up, chaos." This is to the degree to which they pay attention to the details here, to the degree to which, say, Fox News is going to, break down the substance of what we're talking about here, they're not going to get a lot except for the perception of, oh yeah, Donald Trump's shaking this up. Look at all the postdocs or people in the media or people who live in Washington, D.C. or New York or wherever who are shaken up over this. So to me, I mean, he would probably see that as consistent with his mission.
I think the real question is, I don't entirely understand why they backtracked, at least in part, so quickly. If it is about fear of political blowback, how does that affect a lot of the rest of their agenda? So like this year, there's going to be a huge food fight over the tax system, right? Because a large portion of the Trump 2017 tax cuts are expiring. And to date, Republicans in Congress have indicated that they're going to pay for that in part by cutting a lot of these safety net services we're talking about, whether it's Medicaid, food stamps, other housing assistance, all sorts of other safety net programs. And again, those were a lot of the same things, maybe not food stamps, but those are a lot of the same kinds of programs that just got targeted this week. So if this was really about crap, we're worried that our own voters are going to be mad at us. What does that mean for the rest of their agenda this year? Because I think they've really been banking on being able to slash the safety net and in many cases hurt their own voters without a lot of political repercussions.
Hey folks, never miss an episode of Stay Tuned. Hit that subscribe button now. If you'd like to support our work, consider becoming a member of Cafe Insider. You'll get exclusive access to a weekly podcast I co-host with Joyce Vance and other great subscriber benefits. Head to cafe.com/insider to learn more and to join. That's cafe.com/insider.